Good morning. I'm Paul McHugh. My pronouns are him and he and him, whatever. The three of us are up here to give testimonials to abundance is right where you are. And it's a spiritual practice, spiritual principle. I mean, I have chosen to tithe the Cityside because I grow my spiritual consciousness. That's one of the three things in the mission, is grow spiritual consciousness. I do that by, number one, just being here because people are like-minded in this space. Two, I love to take different classes and workshops because that kind of brings me back to a spiritual consciousness that I may have left at home that day and I forgot to take with me in the car. So, abundance. So one of the principles of abundance is giving and receiving. There are many principles, that's one. So in terms of giving and receiving, pets give love, and they don't expect much back. A little food, and that's about it. I never had a dog growing up, kind of wasn't interested in having a dog. When my family wanted a dog, I said, I was a lone vote, no dog. And now she's my dog. Go figure. But of course, dogs give unlimited love, unrequited love, nothing coming back in return. They don't expect anything. I don't know how they do it. I'd like to be more like a dog. But then she gives me something to give love to also. And she doesn't expect anything back. We all do, let's face it, we're human. But she doesn't expect anything back. And it's such a freeing thing to give love that way. So I'm going to give a couple examples of giving and receiving. The first example is something that didn't work out so well, and the second example is something that did. So I had a car I needed to sell. It's worth X dollars. I thought I'd call up a couple friends and see if I would be willing to sell the car to them for X minus $5,000, because that's all the dealer would give to me, blah, blah, blah. So I reached out to someone and said, I'll sell you the car if you do X. Now, I didn't hide the X. I put it out there up front, but it wasn't a clean offer of giving. I knew that at the time, but still, I wanted Y, and I would be willing to give her my car for X. And no surprise, the quote-unquote, it just kind of fell apart. Not for the X or the Y that I wanted, but for another reason. But I'm going, well, that wasn't very clean. No surprise it didn't happen. Another simple example was of a good positive thing. I've got an extra bicycle. I take bikes for granted. I've got a couple bikes. No big deal. Take a bike for granted. So I said, well, I've got a bike. I could give it away. I don't need it. I could give it to the shelter just by my house that's shelter. It's like a Salvation Army for migrants, asylum seekers. It just started 5 years ago when there's like an influx of migrants in the city. And this community, I'm not a part of it, they just started giving stuff away and people started dropping stuff off and they gave stuff away. Now they've got a building as big as this that just gives things away once a week. Anyway, so I've got an extra bike. I bring the bike over and I say, do you think you can use a bike? They go, oh God, yes, somebody can use a bike that comes through here every Wednesday. So I left the bike and I wasn't there when it was given away, but the story was that, a number of people wanted the bike there, and they tried to interview the people like, well, who really needs the bike to go to work or something important? And they decided they were going to give it to a gentleman, and sort of in this giving and receiving and gratitude all wrapped up in one story. When they told him he gave it to him, he fell down on his knees and he cried and said a prayer. He needed it so badly to do something like get to work. And I heard that story, and I was just in tears, I was receiving, I was giving something that didn't mean that much to me, but it sure means something to him. So whenever I think of that, it kind of brings tears to my eyes again, just give, and sometimes I didn't expect to get anything back. I didn't know what it was going to go to. Anyway, so that's my positive story of giving and receiving. So next, Rob is coming up, give his own stories about abundance right where you are. Am I missing anything? Okay.
Thank you, Paul. What a great story. I'm going to get set up here, and I usually like to have a piece of paper in front of me rather than speak from my phone, because the phone shuts off, and then you got to try to get it back on, and I start panicking. But anyways, my name's Rob Wozniak. I'm one of your licensed spiritual practitioners here at Cityside. I'm very honored to be able to speak today, and I have a story, that I want to share with you. And long ago, and I can speak in terms of actual decades now. I ran it was the Ravenswood 5K. And I came across the finish line, and I was so excited. It felt so good. I said, I'm going to run the Chicago Marathon. I just know it. It's going to be so great. And, this was, like I said, a long time ago. I was a different person. My favorite bar restaurant had a deal that Sunday for $5 mimosas. So a $50 bill later, no food in my stomach. Brunch was over, and it was the afternoon, and I got nowhere to go, really. Another lonely Sunday. And that dream died, like a lot of my dreams that I had and good ideas that I had back then. But things change, and many years later, that dream didn't leave me. I'm still thinking, boy, I'd love to run that marathon. And I was taking my health a lot more seriously. In the Lisa Nichols book, Abundance Now, which we've been studying this month, she talks a lot about, we need to get to that mindset, like Gordon was reading this morning. And, for me, one of the things, if you've run a marathon, typically to run it, you need to raise a lot of money for a cause. And to do that, you need to ask people for money, which for me was very confronting. I don't want to ask people for money. People are busy. They got things to spend on and important things. And I did what we do here, which is, I got prayer support. I did my own work. I looked at the fears that were coming up. And, long story short, I did ask a lot of people, including in this community, to support me, and they supported me very generously. And it was very gratifying to know that. But there's a lot of training required to run a marathon, and to do that, I really needed a higher purpose and an inspiration, and it really, for me, came through a forgiveness opportunity, particularly in the relationship with my mother. So Lisa Nichols talks a lot about the need to heal our relationships, to really have the freedom to pursue our goals and to pursue our dreams. For me, as I got older, it kind of became clear to me that, growing up, I had played a role in the relationship with my mother where I was kind of this emotional anchor. Some would refer to it as what they call a surrogate spouse. And there was an impact to me on all that. And it really affected, how I pursued, how I was able to create relationships, as an adult. And, when that, the truth of that situation was revealed to me, I went into a period of grieving. And it was and that was what was required at that time, was to really experience myself, experience the feelings. And as many people predicted, as I came out of that, I was very angry. Was angry to the point of I didn't want to go. I didn't want to talk to my mother. I didn't want to. She was living in assisted living at that time. She was at getting ready to make a transition, and I was like, I don't even want to go see her. I don't want to talk to her. Lisa Nichols, again, she talks about taking responsibility for your hurt feelings, taking responsibility for the healing of your relationships, particularly with your loved ones. Um, and so, and one of the things she goes into is like, how do you own your part in these dynamics? So in my case, you know, I was a kid. You know, I really didn't have a part in creating that dynamic. However, I do have a part in, you know, hanging on to that hurt, hanging on to that situation for so long, and repressing all that anger, all those feelings for so long. And you know, that was for me to pursue that goal. You know, I really needed freedom. I really needed a miracle. And so I do what we do here, which is I reached out for support. And the support I was getting at that time was I was doing sessions with a lot of you know Mark Anthony Lord, and you know he really you know got me to. We did a prayer for forgiveness. So, you know, last month we talked about Colin Tipping's, you know, radical forgiveness. You know, I facilitate a study group here on A Course in Miracles, which is all about forgiveness. And the thing I want to say about that is that, you know, for forgiveness for a lot of people, it's really this idea that I'm making a huge sacrifice, kind of letting someone off the hook. Maybe who did, you know, something bad or whatever it is, and that's not it. And it's really, as you know, as I've been taught, as I practice, and hopefully as I teach and demonstrate, it's really, you know, learning to see like God sees, and that God sees only love, and the rest simply doesn't exist. So, you know, in that session, I remember it was lifted from me. You know, I was able to just release all those you know old feelings, all that anger I had repressed for so long, and you know, since that time, you know, I've really never felt anything but love and peace towards my mother. And it was like perfectly clear at the time that, you know, I was going to, you know, dedicate my training and the actual race to my mother. So when I got to the marathon, it was race day, and I had done the training and followed the instructions, and I had a picture of my mom in my pocket. So I got to all the mile markers. You know, it's like mile 10. I've got you, Mom. Mile 15, I got you, Mom. Mile 20, which they say is like the big shift. And I was like, I've got you, Mom. Please have me. And so I finished the marathon in 4 hours and 5 minutes. And so now the top finishers that day, they finished in about exactly half that time, right? But who cares? You know, as far as I was concerned, you know, hand me the trophy, because yeah, it was just a wonderful accomplishment, a wonderful healing experience, and you know, it's still with me today, reverberating. So that's my story, and now Jason will come and talk about prosperity right where you are.
Thank you, Rob. I have to follow that now, you know, beautiful stuff. About 20 years ago, I was in a very unhappy place. I was in a marriage that wasn't working for me or probably her, frankly, and I was just unhappy in my life. And one of the things I had to do was I had to change something in my thinking, because your abundance really lives a little bit outside of your comfort zone and can often be limited by a thought or something that you believe that's really not serving. It may not be a bad thought or a stinky thought. It's like a sticky thought. It's just kind of keeping you where you're at. And that may not be working for you. One of mine was I believed I was so unique that nobody would understand me. And I had to realize that, okay, we're all unique, but I had to say, I'm not so unique that nobody else has some of the same ideas or same feelings or same activities that they like to do. And like one of the ones I love to do was board gaming. So one day I took a leap of faith and I went into a place that doesn't exist anymore, called the Pick a Cup, for a meetup. And I'm like, well, I got to see what's going to happen. I'm nervous as all heck. I really don't want to meet people, but I'm like, got to do something, So I went out and I walked in there and I said, "Oh, hello, my name is Jason." Well, we don't know, It's like, "Do you know anybody here?" I said, "No, I just saw you online, so I decided to show up." They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Don't ask, I'm here." But from that very day, I met a couple of my closest friends that I didn't know. And then the following week, they invited me back, and before you know it, I'm having friendships with people that a month before I didn't even know. All of a sudden, we're becoming closer and closer, and we wound up taking trips together, and I know them to this day, and have had all these wonderful adventures with them. Then another thing happened a couple years after that. I dissolved the marriage, and I met a girl who told me, "Well, if we want to be together, you have to come with me to the CSL called Bodhi." I'm like, "Okay." I like spirituality. I'm like, and I figure I'm alternative, so I did that. She goes, "But the good news is, I'm going to make this a little easy on you. He's going to talk about sacred sexuality." I'm like, "Okay." This ought to be good. I'm a recovering Catholic, so it's like you don't hear about that in the Catholic Church, at least not the ones I went to. And then from there, I'm like, so then it's like, okay, so I liked it, so I kept going and going. And then I decided to reach out a little bit further. And I joined what they called the Hug Team. Now, you may not know this now, but before then, I didn't want you to touch me. I definitely didn't want you to hug me. Even my family, we didn't hug all that much. So I'm like, okay. I mean, knowing me now, you may be like, that sounds nuts. Well, it's a lot of growth. So that's where my bunch, and I wound up having this great experience with them over time and stuff. And then that went away, but luckily I had met Reverend Amy through that process. And eventually when this started coming up, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember them. So I kind of wandered back in. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. It's small, but I like it. I'm really feeling the love, and I feel like I'm accepted. I can be a little more myself, because I don't always feel like I can be my authentic self. I have to kind of put a little wall up in front to give you a little disguise. Yeah, I'm true, but not always quite true. But then I had to come to another realization. This one was very, very hard. I had to decide to start consistently tithing. This was around the pandemic, so I made a decision. We were studying Edwin Gaines' book at the time, and he said, you got to tithe a percentage. 10% was her thing. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for 6 months as a test just to see what happens. So I put on automatic. I don't want to believe in, I'm going to go do it every time, because then I always find an excuse. I'm like, I'm just going to go do it, reach out and do it. I did it I started doing it and on, and nothing really happened. I just kept giving and giving. Then one day, my boss calls me. Now, when you're in corporate, they only talk about certain things at certain times of the year. He called me. I said, yeah, what's up, boss? He goes, I'm letting you know I'm retiring. This pandemic has taught me that life's too short. I'm going to go and live in Oregon with my wife and enjoy the rest of my years. I was like, well, good for you, boss. I'm sad to see you go. And they're like, well, I got some news for you. I said, well, what's that? Now, this is in September. And I say, well, what's that? He goes, starting next paycheck, you're going to get an $8,000 raise. I'm like, hey? Now, I'm in an office, so I can't just scream like I want to. So I had to be like, okay, now don't tell anybody. I said, oh, no problem. I understand how corporate works. Now, corporate, if you know, only gives raises at one time of the year. And for that case, it was usually March. So I'm like, totally out of the blue. I'm like, okay, thanks, boss. And so I walked outside with all the poise and calm. You're trying not to. I go outside. I call my parents. I say, hey, Mom, Dad, guess what? What? I got a raise. Ah! So, and that taught me the value of also abundance, that being open and vulnerable. And I had to be open and vulnerable before I can enjoy my full abundance in these things. So, and then recently my dad passed away, and I also remember how much abundance of love and support I got from this community, from my friends, and all the people that help. And even when we had to get rid of all the things in the house, I'm like, what are we going to do with all this stuff? What are we going to do? I mean, wasn't caring about trying to get my money off. Just wanted to, how are we going to get rid of this? But I want this to go to something useful. My best friend calls and says, there was somebody at the doctor's office who knew your mom very well. Oh, really? Well, that's no surprise. My mom knew everybody, If they were in a 25-mile radius, she knew you. So she had an abundance of making friends. She was really good at that. So yeah, they love your mom. They want to come and see if can they come and see if there's any stuff? They have an empty house. Like, an empty house? Yeah. Well, come on by. They came by. They said, we love it. I said, you can take it. Come by. They came by with like 2 or 3 trucks over a couple of weekends, took everything I didn't want. I'm like, and then they showed me pictures, their son sitting on a couch playing a game. I'm sitting there going, well, gee, if I ever want to see my parents' house, I just have to go over there, right there at home. And the funny thing is now, because I'm still residentially fluid, as Reverend Linda likes to talk about, I'm in this position too. But my very friend who I met that first day I walked in the Pick-a-Cup, I'm right now staying in her basement as a long-term guest. So it's just amazing how the cycle keeps going when you're willing to take a little step, one step outside your comfort zone. Take a little leap of faith and you see how rich your life can be and how abundant you will feel. So as I would say, your abundance is within you, but you got to step outside your comfort zone. You got to step outside your sticky thinking and challenge some of those thoughts you believe as to why you might be where you're at, if you're unhappy with where you're at, or even just want to expand yourself a little bit. At this time, though, everyone will notice that you probably have some cards and pencils. Does everyone have one? As practitioners, we like to get you to practice. We don't want to just talk to you. We want you to absorb it a little bit. So we want you to do some practicing. So I'd like you to take a few minutes and just write down maybe one or a couple thoughts that may be sticking or maybe limiting your abundance in some way, shape, or form. Also, be aware of maybe how you maybe judge certain groups of people. Like if you think that rich people are selfish or greedy, that could be a limiting thought and prevent limiting your abundance from living in what Lisa Nichols will call your true light. And just write some of those things down. Don't worry, it's private. We're not going to read them out loud. I'll give you a few minutes. Is anyone missing any cards or pencils? I think we're good. You can take just another few minutes and no rush. But at this time, so if you're ready, we're going to have garbage pails. I guess if you really want, maybe convince Piper to eat it as part of your homework per se. So here's what you're going to do. So everyone can come up whenever you're ready, and I want you to rip it up, throw it in the trash, because when you put something in the trash, it's out of your life. And you can say a little prayer. You can say, like, I release this stinky or sticky thinking, whatever resonates with you, or you can just toss it away, knowing the fact it is gone and you're releasing that limitation and that limiting belief from your life. Feel free to come up anytime, whenever you're ready, and take your time. Feel free to do it with authority if you want. Release it. It has served you, but no further. There's some people who just have to do both, you know. All right, we got one more. All right. Yeah, never forget about Tony. All right. And then we're going to take that out to the trash, and it's gone forever. And just knowing that we are now one with abundance. And I'm grateful for each and every person. I'm grateful for Cityside, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. And with that, so it is.